in Mass Effect then, were there times where you were having conversations with...
There were several times where I was having conversations.
Must have come up, but was that an odd thing for you to see, even more than just... Because sometimes it's odd hearing your own voice. Is it even odder hearing your own voice, having a conversation with your own voice?
Yeah, certainly. It was strange, but delightful. We actually use a system called Veda, in which the other performances in the scene are played back through your headset. Okay. So you're not just acting into a vacuum. So I'd record one for... I believe I recorded Shepard first.
I was going to say, you record all the Sheppard first, and you'd...
It depends. Like, sometimes, depending on what scenes are written, and because everything's not written at the same time, and not necessarily in chronological order. So you're essentially piecing together the game, and that's why you really rely on your director to give you context and let you know what's going on, and you never see a complete script. So with scenes where I was playing against myself, I would hear them as I was doing the second part, and then I'd hear my other pre-recorded part. And then watching them actually within the game was a lot of fun as well. So I'm just trying to think of distinct examples. There was the biotic god, Niftu Kal, who was the Volus, who was deluded into thinking he was a powerful biotic and was actually just on drugs. So Shepard, I think, knocks him out, or can result in his death. That was fun. So there were several scenes. Actually, some of the very first work I did for Mass Effect was me speaking to myself. It was for the original demo that was in E3. And the scene involved Commander Shepard threatening a Solarian bartender, who was also me. So
So they just got you in to do this demo?
Sorry?
So they just got you in to do that demo?
No, this was basically as they were gearing up. By that point, I already had been cast as Commander Shepard. Although when I started working on Mass Effect at the very early stages, I was designing the alien sound sets. I was sort of determining how all the races would sound, the various species. And so I was some of the earliest Solarians. And I'm the reason why Solarians kind of sound a bit like Steve Buscemi. So, yes. And the bartender in particular was very Steve Buscemi. I don't think he actually made it into the game. Because they were like, it might be a little too much, so they dialed it back a little bit. There was again times where I was playing mercs. There is one scene in particular where someone is being held hostage and Shepard bursts into the room. I'm playing the merc who has a gun to a hostage's head, and then I shoot myself in the face. And, so there were many instances like that, and in the Dragon Age games as well.
Yeah. Obvious question. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, on you go.
Oh, okay. Considering you do a lot of different characters have to swap roles within that game, and you have a background in improv, how does your background in improv affect, or does it have any impact on the way that you do your performances for games?
I'd say it helps immeasurably, because a lot of the time you're dealing with what's essentially a cold read. You hardly ever see your script before your session. You're seeing your dialogue as it's coming up, and with the Veda system, it's a little better than in the old days. But being able to drop immediately into character, being able to just sort of roll with the punches that way, that really helps. And actually, I always promote improv as being invaluable in almost any branch of acting.
So, obvious question. Do you prefer being good Shepherd or bad Shepherd?
I always do 2 playthroughs, and I usually do my evil one first, or in this case, Renegade, followed by Paragon, so that it feels like I'm redeeming myself for being such an asshole the first time through. And any game that I, like, not just the Mass Effect games, like, I am a gamer, so like Fallout and games like that where you can essentially be good or evil. I always go evil first and, sell orphans into slavery and whatnot from Fallout.
I take it it's more fun to be an asshole as well.
Yeah, and then also, being good the second time sort of cleanses the palate of all the assholery.
It's karma. It clears your cosmic.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like, no, but I saved Megaton this time.
As an actor, which of those do you prefer to act? Do you have a preference?
Good or evil? Like the Paragon? Well, the Renegade, let's face it, tends to have a little more fun with the snarky lines, and certainly, it's not necessarily my performance, but the Renegade interrupts in the game are a lot more fun because, let's face it, it's pretty fun to throw someone out the window or, no offense, to punch the reporter in the face. This happens in the game. And actually, the lady who plays the reporter that I punch in the face is a very good friend of mine. She's her brother was actually my best man at my wedding. So
you didn't punch him?
I didn't punch him. I punch April every time I see her, though.
Did you have a favourite line of dialogue from the game then? One of the Renegade interrupts, perhaps?
Well, of course, I always go back to the Sheppard catchphrase, which is, I should go. Because nearly every interaction ends with that or some variation on it. And they, BioWare could have cheaped out. They could have paid Jennifer Hale and I to say that line once each and then just reused it again and again. They did not. They wanted all the the various variations on I should go, and sometimes it's I should go now, so I got to get going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I should go is the catchphrase. But for favorite lines, then it does tend to be the renegade ones, like I'll relinquish one bullet. Where do you want it? Yeah, things like that. Yeah, or just his his cold one-liners as he kills people. Those are fun. Those are super fun.
What's the one line you keep hearing, like at conventions and stuff, that people will say to you?
The one that I'm most apt to record for people's outgoing voice messages and things, it's usually some variation on "I'm Commander Sheppard and this is my favorite blank on the blank." So just plug a couple of nouns in there and you're fine. Yeah, that and also I should go, and let's see what else. Oh, sometimes it's just actually a funny one that's recently started. There is a YouTube guy called Manslayer, and he's created a series called Gamerpoop. And basically what he does is cuts up dialogue from popular games and then makes the characters say ridiculous things. And so he's done on Skyrim, on a lot of popular games, and I think he's done about 4 or 5 on Mass Effect. He created a new catchphrase for Commander Sheppard, which was, "We'll bang, okay?" So he would end every conversation with, "We'll bang, okay?" And yeah, well, you can sleep with a lot of people in the game, so you can see where that came from. So a lot of people have been asking me to record that. Last year at Dragon Con, someone did get me to say that on tape and posted it to YouTube. I think it has over 100,000 hits now, and it's just me saying a phrase that I don't actually say in the game, so yeah.
It should be in 4.
Yeah, I would like to say that I admire Gamerpoop highly. It's very, very funny.
I was going to ask actually. There was a big. This is where I get my snob hat on. The first Mass Effect, it had like this real kind of 70s sci-fi thing going on with it. The whole it was like Buck Rogers or something. It was but that kind of changed throughout the games. It got a bit more gritty, didn't it, and a bit more kind of like.
Well, I think they always wanted that sort of hard-edged realism, that sort of idea of 24 in space.
Oh, right.
And so that was always part of the vision. So I think it just got more refined as it went on. Yeah.
Oh, okay, no, it's just like the first one. It was like a 70s prog rock album cover,
Right.
All the.
Well, and also the graphics were simpler, so things didn't look as dirty or beaten up. The skins weren't necessarily didn't have as much texture to them.
So the intention was always to be the Wire in space or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was from the outset. That was the kind of direction it was getting.
When you started the role, did you have much of an idea of how things were going to progress for your character beyond the first game, or were you sort of going line by line, or did you know sort of how big the stakes were going to get by the end of the planned story?
I essentially knew that it was planned to be a trilogy, but there was no guarantee that we would do a second or third game. I'd worked for BioWare before. I'd been working for them since 1999. I started on the Baldur's Gate games. And so I knew that they produced, and I played all their games too, so I knew they produced good games, and quality is generally rewarded with success. Some, not always, but it helps. I didn't have an idea how popular it would become. You hear very flattering comparisons to Star Wars and things like that. So yeah, I was blown away by how ingrained in popular culture it became and how many people just love it so deeply. And Mass Effect fans especially have such a strong connection. Like, I'll put them pound for pound with any fandom. Like, even like super dedicated ones, like say the Firefly fans or the Browncoats as they're called. They invested so much in the game because I think of the relationships and the way that they were just able to really become invested in the characters.
And knowing, just like as a big fan myself, that level of investment in the game, do you find that does the fact that before you play the games you've had to record everything and every possible interaction, do you find that lessens your enjoyment or possibly your connection to that story?
I've often in previous interviews I've described my experience of playing Mass Effect as like being Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, in that I know everything that's happening. I don't have a photographic memory, but as I'll start to play a mission, it'll be, oh yeah, it's this one, and I'll remember all the ways it could possibly end. So in a sense, it is like being Dr. Manhattan, the puppet who can see the strings, going through the motions, as it were. But it's really fun to see it all together because it's rare that I'll have seen any visuals from the scene. Occasionally they'd show an animatic for when things had to be synced up, but usually you're just seeing text, and then you're seeing it all put together in the game. So, I mean, that part is certainly rewarding. And also, bumping into my friends as aliens. He's like, oh, hey, that's Jeff. Yeah.
Does it spoil your enjoyment in playing the game, or does it add to it in different ways?
It's a different. It's a
totally
very
different experience.
It's a very unique experience because I know a lot of video game voice actors don't necessarily game themselves. So I'm not sure how many other people share that experience with me. It's like I know Jennifer doesn't game so much because she's actually doing action hero things like climbing mountains and things like that. So I will say that it's sometimes more fun for me to play a game like Dragon Age, where I'm not necessarily privy to details of the plot.
Not the main role.
It'll be more like open a cave and it's like, oh, I've discovered myself as a bad guy. Like, I've killed myself, and now moving on to the next me that I will kill. And so the fact with Mass Effect is because I was playing Commander Shepard, I knew pretty much everything about the plot going in. And yeah, it is an odd experience to play the game.
It's like you're playing. Like, oh, I was ill that day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also, it's sort of. I've done a couple of playthroughs of 1 and 2. I've done like full Paragon and full Renegade, then full Paragon playthroughs. Played a fair bit of Mass Effect 3, but obviously there's not as much impetus for me to finish it. So before the next game comes out, because Shepard's story is done now, and so it's an interesting experience to do that.
I was going to ask about this. Is a loaded question. Have you been, because they've announced they're doing a new one, obviously. Have you been asked to come and do
I believe I would not be allowed to tell you, even if I was.
Would you like to be involved in
Well,
the future
certainly,
one?
yes. I would point out that there are entire alien species that I am all of. So, I'm all of the Vorcha, I'm all of the Hanar, I'm many of the Bolus.
So you were the biotic god?
I was the biotic god, yes. Niftuka.
So, is there a particular favourite alien race that you play?
Well, I mean, the Vorcha were a lot of fun, certainly. There was just screaming and screeching and like filling my mouth half with water to get their gurgling. So they were always great, and they were space orcs essentially. So they were lots of just banging myself against the sides of the sound booth essentially. The Hanar also, Hanar are interesting because they just have that weird sort of way of speaking, and this one wishes to do things. However, Blasto was a real treat. Yeah, and of course, I come from a comedy background, so getting to play comic relief characters like Blasto and Niftucal, that was nice. And we usually save those for the end of the day after several hours with Shepard.
Considering how long you've been with BioWare and the fact that you cosplay yourself, which of those came first? And has being at conventions and being on the sort of being in the game side, have they affected each other?
Well, I just came, actually, this is my second costume of the day. I just now was wearing my full Commander Shepard armor at a big Mass Effect cosplay rally. That was built for me recently by a friend of mine who I met at Dragon Con, and he makes them, he like, very expensive suits of armor. He gave it to me for free. David Carpenter is his name, so I have to make sure that I promote him for that fantastic gift he gave me. But I guess it's always been something I've done, because I used to be very into Halloween. I still am. That's my wedding anniversary, so we have a big party every year. I didn't start costuming at cons until probably about 2005 or so, so I guess I'd already been working for BioWare at that point. But, I'd always had elaborate Halloween costumes, and most of them were usually, like, Bizarro Superman or things from comic books and pop culture. And it was Dragon Con that I first started costuming at, just because I'd been going to Dragon Con since 1998, just because a theater festival sort of coincidentally happened at the same time. Eventually they moved the theater festival, and I decided, I think I'll just keep going to Dragon Con, but this time I won't have shows at night, so I can actually just go and hang out and party at Dragon Con. And by this point I had built up a huge stockpile of Halloween costumes that, needed to see some more use.